Welcome to Media384. With the recent popularization of computers and the World Wide Web, or the Internet, it has been found pertinent to include laws pertaining to on- and offline interactions. First up, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act criminalizes the intentional misuse of computers, regardless of whether or not one has authorization to use said computer. The U.S. v. Nozzle case was a precedent-setting case in what does and does not count as authorized use of computers. David Nozzle used to work for the Korn Ferry Company until he didn't. While breaking a non-competition clause, Nozzle solicited 3 Korn Ferry employees to download sensitive Korn Ferry information to help David start his own company. He was caught and found guilty of breaking the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The courts claimed he exceeded authorization, meaning that, although technically they were authorized to access Korn Ferry computers, they had done so with the intent to defraud the organization and gain valuable information, therefore exceeding what they were authorized to do with Korn Ferry computers. In relation to the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is the case of Aaron Swartz. Aaron Swartz was an advocate for free and open information. He downloaded and distributed millions of court documents for free, all of which had cost money to access before. More importantly, he downloaded many JSTOR documents using an MIT guest account. The FBI didn't press charges against him for the court cases. They were, technically, public documents. JSTOR, however, was not so merciful. Aaron refused a plea deal, opting to fight JSTOR, facing 50 years in jail and millions of dollars in fines. He then killed himself. This sparked Aaron's Law, a change in the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, shortening prison times for violations and decriminalizing the violation of user agreements. Next up, cellular devices, your right to privacy. We all carry cell phones these days, and on them we have some of our most personal information. But what happens when police want to access this information? David Riley and Brima Worry both had their phones searched by authorities without a warrant, leading to the discovery of incriminating evidence and their eventual arrests. This was argued to be unconstitutional, as police did not have permission from the state to search their phones. This led to the Bedrock Law, which states that due to the Fourth Amendment, cell phones may not be searched without a warrant. Encryption is a way to keep data away from people who you don't want to have it. 2 terrorists killed a lot of people and then died, but Apple would not unlock their iPhones for the FBI. Backdoors are paths through encryption. Privacy advocates hate backdoors, but prosecutors love them. Apple currently refuses to add backdoors to their products and increases encryption strength whenever they find it profitable. You are being tracked by the government. Devices called stingrays mimic cell towers and then track any devices connected to them. These are meant to be used only on criminals, but of course they track any device connected to them, which is any device close enough. Some states require warrants for stingrays, and even fewer require police to delete data from innocent bystanders. Not everyone is able to use the internet to its fullest extent. In fact, many people born with disabilities have trouble using the internet every day. The Americans with Disability Act requires public necessities to be accessible to disabled individuals. In the early days of the internet, this was not easy, and so multiple companies, including AOL, Target, and Netflix, were sued for not being accessible to blind people. The results of these cases varied, especially by state, but they were inspiration for the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, which required anything aired on broadcast television to have closed captions and a video description available, even if it had been uploaded to the internet. America isn't the only country with access to the World Wide Web. It has its name for a reason, after all. But what other countries do sometimes affects us, even if it's unfair. Many countries that would normally be considered free decide to block websites. This includes the United States of America, as well as many other countries that claim to be champions of freedom. Many popular websites, such as Skype or YouTube, have been blocked in various countries for various reasons. France wants Google to be required to delete all data globally. This relates to the right to be forgotten, a right the EU upholds for its citizens. The name is self-explanatory. If people want to be forgotten by the public, they should be allowed to. The Privacy Shield framework allows users to opt out of cookies and data sharing. Cookies collect information to improve user experience and not to sell data to data brokers. The EU requires cookie consent. However, some sites will not allow you to use them if you don't enable cookies. And now for my favorite but most tragic section, online gambling. The 1961 Wire Act was aimed to prevent racketeering, but it extended to the internet, making online gambling illegal until in 2002, it was ruled that the Wire Act prohibited betting online, but not poker or other online games. The Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act passed in 2006 and restricted financial transactions for online gambling. The Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act could have eliminated games of chance online altogether, but the Treasury Department was allowed to create specific regulations. After much deliberation, they allowed for up to 5 years of imprisonment for violating the act. After these laws were solidified, many countries and international corporations took issue with them because they made it harder for Americans to gamble internationally. This has led to years and years of debate as to whether or not these laws should be in place, to what extent they should be in place, and how they should be enforced. Federal law targets site hosts, not individuals, while many states, especially Arizona, have outlawed online gambling entirely. Some fantasy sports are illegal as well, depending on the state. In fact, most states have some restrictions on fantasy sports, online gambling, and online betting. That does it for the laws of the World Wide Web. While the internet may not be as free as it used to be, it's now much safer for everyone that uses it. Important things to remember are: the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act criminalizes the intentional misuse of computers, regardless of whether or not one has authorization to use said computer. Your data is encrypted, and Apple won't let the government into your phone without your permission until it stops being profitable. The government needs a warrant to search your phone, but not to track it. The 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act requires anything aired on broadcast television to have closed captions and a video description available, even if it has been uploaded to the internet. The EU believes in the right to be forgotten, and the right to opt out of cookies and data sharing. The Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act passed in 2006 and restricted financial transactions for online gambling. The legality of online gambling is constantly shifting and a source of debate. That's all for this lesson. Next in Media 384, antitrust issues and why you should see a psychologist about those. Stay safe and happy surfing.